Let's draw a one-point perspective train, inspired by the movie The Polar Express. So let's watch a scene from The Polar Express.
Look there! Trucks! Get ahead! Right! It's not my ticket, it's yours! It's my ticket! All right, keep up with me! Left! Right! Left! Brace yourselves!
So in the scene from The Polar Express, we saw some different views of perspective. When we see the train going back far and we see the end getting smaller, that is an example of one-point perspective. So one-point perspective is a set of drawing rules that helps you create an illusion of space in your drawing. In one-point perspective, there is always a vanishing point on the horizon line where objects in the distance vanish to or get smaller. One-point perspective is often used to draw images of things like roads, cities, railways, and hallways. Perspective is how we see or view something. A vanishing point is the area or spot in a work of art where things gradually have gotten so far away that they seem to disappear or vanish. In these examples, you can see the vanishing point where the red dot is. Notice how all the objects get smaller as they go closer to the vanishing point. A horizon line is the horizontal line that divides the land from the sky in a landscape. So let's review our directions first. For your supplies, you will need a piece of paper, the perspective train drawing directions that you can find on Google Classroom, a pencil, an eraser, a ruler, a black marker, and coloring materials. First, we'll start by drawing a horizon line and a vanishing point in pencil. You need to draw lightly so that you can erase some of these lines later. Follow the directions in this video to draw the train in one-point perspective. Then you can draw the ground, the background, and the sky details of your choice. After, outline in a black marker and add color with your choice of materials. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So we are going to be using the drawing rules of one-point perspective to draw our trains today. When you're using one-point perspective, we have a couple important parts we have to use. First, we'll always start with the horizon line, the line where the land and the sky meet. Next, we'll choose a vanishing point. This is the point where everything in the landscape converges to one point, or gets smaller at one point. This vanishing point happens to be in the middle, but for us, we'll be using one that is off to the side. The vanishing point is very important because everything we draw will go to the vanishing point. Notice how the trees get smaller as they get closer to the vanishing point. The sidewalk sections are getting smaller as they're closer to the vanishing point. This building here is getting smaller as it gets closer to the vanishing point. So this line is wider than the one that is closer to the vanishing point. This door frame even converges to the vanishing point because it's on the side. So to get started, you will need a piece of paper, pencil, an eraser, a black marker to outline, a ruler or something that has a flat edge, like a book or another piece of paper would work. And then you will need some coloring materials later. I will be using some crayons and some watercolors, but you can use any supplies that you have. So you should start your drawing with pencil, but I'm going to be using a marker to show you the steps so that you can really see what you need to draw. I would suggest drawing very lightly with pencil so that you can erase, because you're going to need to erase some of the lines that are just there as guides that eventually you're not going to want in your final drawing. So please use a pencil first and draw very lightly, but I will be using a marker to show you most of the steps. So first, let's make our horizon line. You should make your horizon line about a hand's width from the bottom of the paper. And we will be using our paper horizontally or landscape style so that it's wider going across. So I'm going to put a tiny little dot here, and then I'm going to make my horizon line with my ruler. So I'm going to put it up to the dot and try to make it look straight across, and I'm going to make my horizon line. Then I need to draw my vanishing point. Now you don't need to make your vanishing point really big because you're going to erase it later and you really only need it for you to see. Our vanishing point for this project is on the left side, almost at the edge of the paper here. Now I'm going to draw the bottom of the train track where the wheels are. I'm going to put about 1 or 2 fingers above the bottom of the paper. Put a little dash there where you want your line to be. And we need to line this up with our vanishing point. So I'm going to put my ruler there and match it up with the vanishing point. Hold my ruler in place and make the bottom of the train track line. Now we need to do the same thing for the top of the train. This will be about 2 or 3 fingers from the top of your paper. So again, I'm going to make a little mark here. And I'm going to be doing this one in pencil because I definitely need to erase it. I want to make the top of my train curved later. So I'm going to go to my vanishing point, and my ruler doesn't reach all the way, but I'm just going to leave that open for now and I will connect the line. So that is the top of the train. Now about in the middle of the space right here above our horizon line and below the top of the train, we're going to draw an oval. This will be for the light on the front of the train. Then let's draw a half oval shape that goes to the edge of the paper. And next, another almost half oval shape that stops at the horizon line. Now I'm going to draw a diagonal line that goes to the bottom of the train track. This is an area of the train called the cow catcher. Then we're going to draw 3 more diagonal lines there to the edge of the paper. Now we need to draw the smokestack part. This is like the chimney on the train. So I'm going to make my lines a little bit curved and the top a little bit rounded, and there's going to be smoke coming out of that. So you could draw a cloud shape. Next, let's draw vertical lines that will separate the different cars in our train. I would suggest using a ruler for this step if you can't draw them very straight on your own. When we're drawing the cars for our train, it's really important to remember that things get smaller as they get closer to the vanishing point. And And that one's going to be the end of my train. So the first one is the widest, then it's going to get a little bit smaller each time. Now let's draw wheels underneath each car of the train. I'm going to draw 2 ovals underneath each one. The first one is going to go a little bit behind the cow catcher area. And notice how they start out large in the front, and as they go to the vanishing point, they're much smaller. Now let's draw the top of our train. So we've already drawn this top line, but let's make it look more like a train by making it a little bit curved. So it just has a slight arch to it. That's why it was really important that I didn't draw that line with a marker first, because now I can erase the original pencil line. I'm still making sure that my line goes to the vanishing point as I'm drawing these arched lines. Next, let's draw windows on each car. So when you're doing this, it's really important that you don't just draw windows like this, because we are working with 1-point perspective, and if you don't follow your windows or any other objects to the vanishing point, then your drawing doesn't look very correct. It's not going to give off the effect of 1-point perspective. First, draw some guidelines with my pencil very lightly. So I'm going to turn my paper, and I'm going to decide where I want the top of the window to be. So I'm going to line up my ruler with the vanishing point, and I want it to be a little bit below the top of the train car. So I'm going to draw a line. This is a guideline, so I'm just going to draw it all the way through the train. I will end up erasing some of it later. That will be the top of where the windows start. Then let's do it again below. So where do I want the bottom of the windows to be? Probably about in the middle of the train car. So I'm going to line up my ruler with the vanishing point and draw another guideline. Now I have lines for where my windows will be. So let's draw the sides of the windows now. I'm going to use vertical lines to draw the sides of the windows. This first window is in the conductor's car, so it's going to look a little bit different. You can also draw some texture on the windows, because we know that the Polar Express was in winter and it was very cold, so this is like a foggy window. For the next window, I'm going to draw a wider window shape, and then I'm going to outline just the part of that guideline that I want so that I can erase the rest of it later. So I'm going to do the same on each car. Now for the wheels, I'm going to draw some details to make them look a little more like a wheel. You can do an oval in the middle, but you want to make sure it's going to the vanishing point still. So let's draw another guideline. So line up your ruler with that vanishing point and decide where you want it to start. Then draw a guideline. Now I'm going to erase that line later, but I know that all of the ovals in the wheels need to be on that line. But remember that they're going to get smaller as you get closer to the vanishing point. So as I get closer, I'm trying to make that almost just turn into a dot. And even the ones in the back, we probably wouldn't see that detail. So then let's draw some lines on our wheels. You could use that guideline as one of the lines if you'd like. Now let's draw some details on the train track. So I'm going to use my vanishing point for this step and draw a line to make the train track look more realistic. So I'm going to go to the vanishing point. So I'm going to just line it up here, make a straight line. Let's do one more line just to show the edge of the train track. Also, let's think about what is around the train. So think about what's in the movie The Polar Express. I know that there are mountains, so I'm going to draw a mountain range that is behind the train. You could draw mountains, you could think of something else. When I draw mountains, I like to draw a shadow side using a zigzag line. And then I will fill that in with some straight lines. And these are straight lines that go at an angle, so they're diagonal. That way it makes my mountains look a little more realistic, giving it a 3D look. Let's draw some texture on the mountains, just some lines that are a little bit bumpy. And then what would be on the ground near the train? What is it going by? So I'm going to draw a line that looks like a pond or a river's edge. And this comes out kind of near the vanishing point, and it's going to get wider as it's further away from the vanishing point. So I just used a wavy line, but you could draw something else. Maybe you'd want it to have trees or bushes, snowman. Think about what would be around the train. Now this step is really important. Erase all of the pencil lines that you don't need. So you drew with the pencil first, very lightly, and once you've outlined, erase all of the unneeded pencil lines. Now we are ready to add color. I will be using crayons and some watercolors to add color to mine, but you can use any art supply that you have. When I'm using my crayons, I'm going to try to add some value by doing a little bit of shading. So remember, value is the amount of light or dark in a color. And when you add value, you can make your artwork look more three-dimensional. So I'm shading darker at the edge of an object. So at the edge of this train car is a little bit darker, and then I'm getting lighter as I go towards the middle. Most of this in with crayons, but I'm going to paint the sky with watercolors. And I'm going to use a wax resist trick to put stars in the sky with a white crayon. When you use crayon and watercolors, you're creating something called a wax resist. When you paint over crayon with watercolor, you'll be able to see what you drew with crayon through the paint. That is because crayons are made of wax, and wax resists water, which the paint is made of. So when we look closely at this, we can see the white of the crayon that is supposed to be stars in the sky. You could also do this with an oil pastel. Remember, if you're able to paint, you need a water cup, a paintbrush, and some kind of paints. When you're using watercolors, remember you need to wake up the paint by tapping on it or swirling your brush around. You never want to press hard on the bristles because you want to keep your paintbrush nice and pointy so that it will create beautiful paintings for you. When you're painting, you can do a trick called wet on wet, where if you paint an area of your painting and you get a lot of water on there, then you can add in a little bit more color. So let's try adding a little purple to this, just using drops. And you're going to see the color start to bleed and blend together. This is called wet on wet. Okay, so I am all finished with my 1-point perspective train. I used a horizon line and a vanishing point to draw my train, making sure that objects that are further away are smaller. I also showed perspective by adding a mountain range in the back and a pond that gets wider in the front. And then I outlined and added color to my drawing. I hope you had fun learning about the drawing rules of 1-point perspective and drawing your own train. I can't wait to see what you create.